Alrighty, Wolfpack, let's dive into my top 4 pickups of the week, which are all wide receivers. Starting at the bottom of the list is Josh Palmer, 29% rostered, had the biggest day of anybody on this list, 4 catches on his 4 targets, 113 yards and a TD. It did feel pretty fluky. It was an absolutely broken coverage here in which he hauled in an 80-yard bomb. Actually knocked me out of my fantasy playoffs. Thanks, Josh Palmer. So maybe that's why I have him at the bottom of those lists. I'm just bitter that I had to face him and get knocked out in one of my most important leagues, sadly. But he has been really, really solid this year, and he went right back into a full-time role. 83% of the routes, a team-high 13% target share, which, again, not whopping, but ultimately he got there with the yards as well. And in his last game, since Mike Williams got hurt, 17, 11, 10, 18, 5, or he got hurt himself, and 21 fantasy points. So really all but one of those games, and that game was an injury game, have been inside your top 36 wide receivers. 4 of 6 have been inside the top 30 wide receivers, and over half those games have been inside your top 20 wide receivers for Josh Palmer. The matchups aren't amazing. Buffalo has definitely been a little bit more locked down as of late, and certainly against the deep ball, they are very, very good. We saw Brandon Cooks just get completely erased. So not the best of spots for Josh Palmer. And then Denver has really clamped down on wide receivers as well in 16, 17. That's why I'm a little bit lower. Plus, of course, what is Eason's stick? Yeah, they combined on that touchdown, but it was not a pretty experience by any means. So I don't know that I really want to trust him. And certainly if Keenan Allen is back, the target share will likely vacuum right on back to their stud wide receiver. But I did want to toss out the big performance and the track record of success this year. Maybe Palmer does have a couple more useful games there on the rest of the season. Now, I've talked about him before, and I love what I saw this week out of Jameson Williams. Probably the most impressive just professional day, despite not being his highest scoring day, highest yardage total, or anything of that nature. It was more so the complete game that we saw out of Jameson Williams, and the comments we got after the game from both his coach and quarterback really suggest this could move forward and even escalate as we go. So what we saw here after Chicago, they say, Jameson Williams he's earned the right, Dan Campbell says, for more opportunities. He's been practicing hard. He's been blocking his day off, all that good stuff. Right after he goes out there and says he earns more opportunities, we see Williams get a career high in route share, 72%, and target share, 22%, and air yard share, 38%, in addition to another career high in terms of targets, 7, and receptions, 4. Now, again, it wasn't his biggest fantasy day because he didn't have that bomb touchdown, but seeing 4 catches on 7 targets for 47 yards, seeing him use those quicks, like we know the guy can stretch the field. He can absolutely rip plays as a runner. We've seen the end arounds, but what I was really impressed with, what we saw plenty of at Alabama that we haven't seen much at the professional level, is his ability to just zig and zag and really eat up the middle of the field and after the catch. And they were just designing a ton more of those layup targets. If he can get that the rest of the way and maximize that speed after the catch, it is going to be wheels up here for Jameson Williams. And after the fact, we had Jared Goff saying, it's the work in practice. It's the extra hours and everything he's doing. He really is coming on. He really deserves this right now. The sky is the limit. He's a hell of a player. He's a hell of a kid, and he's working hard right now. I trust him. He's where he needs to be. He's catching the ball in tough locations. It's only going to keep going up for him. And I buy it. I believe it. This is a kid that has 4.39 speed at 6'1". I mean, that is elite 95th percentile speed score there for his size. He had 1,572 yards and 15 touchdowns at Alabama, 79 catches, 19.9 yards per reception. And as a pro, has still been wrecking defenses with 15.7 yards per reception, just much more limited usage. But it sounds like that workload is going to continue to go up, and he has a huge ceiling here over these last 2 weeks where they might need to be shooting it out to get to these playoffs here. So I love it. I absolutely love Jameson Williams. Now, 2 guys, though, that aren't strangers to this waiver wire show, but still out there in a bunch of leagues. One of them is Curtis Samuel, 37% rostered. Just another monster day. 9 targets, 5 catches, 41 yards, and 2 touchdowns here for Curtis Samuel. He has now gone 19, 10, and 21 fantasy points across his last 3. And remember, right before he got hurt, we had 18.2, 18.5, and 14.2 points. Oh my God. Like, the guy has just been rock solid before getting hurt and then ejected for a couple of games. This last week out, he did have 28% target share, 80% of the routes. Really, really solid. So the wide receiver 13 this last week out. Great stuff there for Curtis Samuel. Still out there in over 65% of leagues. So go check out there to see if he's there. Gets the Jets this week, not the best of spots, but we saw Jalen Waddle just murder him. This defense seems to be quitting on the year, and who can blame them at this point? So I wouldn't necessarily call it a void. And then you get San Fran, a top 10 matchup for wide receivers, particularly out of the slot as well. So Curtis Samuel definitely should be rostered. And my number one pickup of the week, both at wide receiver and just overall, is Noah Brown, who I did see get dropped in a bunch of leagues. But he comes in there with Case Keenum, 11 targets, 8 catches, 82 yards, and a score. A monster day for Noah Brown without Nico Collins, without Tank Dell. And we don't know. We know Tank Dell's certainly not coming back. Nico Collins' status still very much up in the air for this upcoming week. That accounted for a whopping 32% of the targets. He played 85% of the routes, which was oddly second on the team. 88% went to Hutchinson, who saw just like 3 targets on the day. It was definitely the Noah Brown show, and we shouldn't be surprised here, given that we've seen 172 and 153-yard performances from him. He's led this team in receiving yards now in 4 out of the 10 games he's played. He's been really, really solid all year, every single time he's been utilized here. So I love Noah Brown moving forward. He gets a decent matchup coming up in week 17. Tennessee, the team he just blitzed. Now, Cleveland coming up this next week, not the best of spots, but again, with Denzel Ward and this secondary banged up, we've seen teams moving the ball fairly well against Cleveland here. So not even a bad spot there for him. So he wraps up here my top pickup of the week. Now, Wolfpack, please do again consider that thumbs up button. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.